What was it? Oh, why am I doing the recording? What am I doing?
No, worries.
Just press record again and then
It's all cool. Yeah, it's all going. Apologies, everybody. We just ran over our 40 minutes there. So Steve's just going to carry on
because
with
I'm
it.
overly talkative. That's
No,
what it
you're
is.
not. It's absolutely really interesting. So please do carry on.
But no, I was just saying, just sometimes as a trans person, it's great being in those bigger spaces, but sometimes you don't want to have that first 10 questions that people who aren't used to trans people maybe ask you, like, what do
Yeah,
you think about transport? What do you think? It's like, I mean, most trans people I've ever met never brought up sport, don't give a fuck
exactly.
about these things. It's this like, do you know what I mean? It's so funny. This is why I was like saying this preoccupation with people on the right. It's like, Harry and Meghan. Like
Yeah,
I love like sometimes because I'm a masochist, I'll go and have a look on Talk TV or GB News. It's just like, what does the other side think about
yeah,
life?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And and you just watch, and there's hours and hours and days of programming dedicated to Harry and Meghan, and it's just like I don't know why they won't just shut up. I don't know why they feel victimized. Nobody cares, and it's like,
Yeah,
but you've done 40 hours of programming about this subject
yeah,
this week.
exactly. Yeah,
Like, of course, like, how much are you gaslighting Megan that she
yeah,
doesn't think that she's been covered? Like, don't get me wrong, I have no love or nothing or hate or anything. I like, like, I don't really care about the royals.
yeah,
Like, but it's just this thing of just like the preoccupation of like the trans thing, and then they'll never go and platform a trans person at the
no,
same time.
that's
So
right.
it's just like two cis people having a chat about trans rights, and you're like,
They've got
there's
no,
nobody to challenge it because they don't want to. It's not
yes,
about balance. It's just about vilification and getting people really angry so that they'll go and like tune in. But it's just that's when you go and have all these horrific things come of it because it's just like breeding grounds for radicalization. And
yeah,
that's the irony is just like, yeah, people on the left, if you just meet someone who's trans or black, whatever, you just like, you're right, mate.
yeah. That's
Like, like, how's your day? Like how we started. That's the whole thing that kind of baffles my mind. Sometimes as well when people tread on eggshells with like you're saying, looking at reports or looking how to deal with trans people or different people in the music industry. I mean, one of the things that I tried to bring in um, was so if you're like a football coach or something like that, or a scout leader or just a teacher, you do a CRB check because you're working with youngsters.
yes.
That that's not necessarily mandatory when you're looking after a younger artist.
Okay.
And I'm like, so
That's
you're telling me, yeah, you're telling me when like somebody's working with someone, like, just as an advisor or whatever, it's like they aren't CRB checked in the way that like I can't think of to like a 13, 14-year-old kid what's more attractive to them like being I can make you a star. You know what I mean? So it's like
yeah.
they're ultra vulnerable because of what's on the other side of it. And I got shot down from it because they were like, well, a lot of people of color won't want to, as their word, won't want to do CRB checks. And I was like, what are you saying?
Oh,
Like
goodness.
that's not a thing. What the problem is, if you only went and CRB checked black people and not white people, or you only CRB check trans people and not cis people, or
Yeah.
gay people and not hetero people,
Yeah.
it's the problem isn't the thing of everyone having the same unilateral experience when it's something like a CRB check. The problem is when somebody is overrepresented or victimized, like stop and search.
Yeah.
It's not applied in an equal manner. That's the problem. It's not stop and search in itself,
Yeah.
but when you only target black teenagers, of course, black teenagers go, "This isn't fair."
Yeah. I feel victim.
So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So it's some of these things that what I want and why I really like you and the work that you do is just like you have to foster open dialogue with
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
for stuff to really be changed. Otherwise, you just have these things where everyone's saying what they think they should be saying in
Yeah.
this performative way, and
Yeah.
stuff doesn't move on.
Yes. I
And
totally,
I think that's the one lucky thing about me being a Geordie and being quite straight to the point is that like, and I'll say, like there's times where I've messed up before, got given the wrong pronoun or just done the wrong thing,
yeah,
and I've had to learn from it and correct it, and that's a whole experiencing. And the minute that you let other people know that you've made a mistake too, you just get this kind of like relief that in shoulders relaxed thing. It's like, okay, cool. I'm like, yeah, I'm not out to cancel. Like, doesn't help anyone. If someone had done something really severe, cool, that's another debate. But most people,
just a
like,
genuine
if you make a mistake, yeah, genuine mistake, and there's no malice in it,
no.
like you just know, and like people. I know there's a big thing about receipt over intention, but intention's still important, I
It
think.
really is. Yeah.
And like when someone's, for instance, like getting in a bit of a muddle with pronouns, but they're trying,
Yeah.
and someone who's deliberately persevering to go like, nah, I'm not gonna,
I'm not going to bother here. I'm not going to.
yeah, yeah, I'm not gonna give. Oh, sorry, did I get it wrong again? Like you
Yeah.
just know in tone of voice thing. It's like I have family up in Sunderland and friends that like definitely don't call me like the politically correct terms being queer or whatever, but will come and give me a massive hug, and I know that like will literally take a bullet for me.
Oh, that's
And
nice.
I'm like, so who's more okay with me, that person or the person who says all the right things but is hesitant when they have to like hug me,
Mm,
or
mm.
you know what I mean? I almost find it easier if someone doesn't like me, it's like I kind of want you to just not like me openly.
Yes, I love that. That's what I like too. I like to know where I stand. I really do like that. I appreciate it, actually. I respect it,
Yeah.
honest.
And you can even be like, oh, you know what? I don't really get on with you, but I'm gonna respect you for the purpose of this. Like, which is also like fine and valid. You can't be everyone's best friend, but it's like there's nothing worse than being like, oh my God, like da 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 da. And then when they get the time away from people, like, oh my God, like, can you believe there's a queer person, this black person, this trans person who's done
Yeah,
this, and like da 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 da. And you're like, you're so much more toxic. You don't even realize it.
yeah.
Like because yeah, everyone is this different point of learning. But I don't know how do you find the industry now compared to when you first joined?
I think you're right, actually, when we touched on some of these topics on people that actually are afraid to. Now, I think, especially with the trans topic,
Mm,
not everyone agrees with it. I know that I've been doing this for 15 years, and that's absolutely fine. I'm not here to force people to make a decision. But what I do find is it's quite worrying for me is people are not feeling that they're open enough to talk about some of the issues that they might be having with the trans issue or to have a
mm,
debate. They just are scared. They're scared of making a mistake. They're scared of offending someone, or they're scared of being cancelled. And I think that that's not okay. Like
mm,
open debates, we need to have dialogue, but we need to learn from each other. And not everyone's at the same point again of being open or accepting, and it takes time. So for me, I'm very patient with people, and I do find that on the whole, people are very open and accepting on the whole, but you
mm,
have a small fraction of people that just won't get it, they don't understand it, and they're not going to. But that's fine too. It's not for me to say this is who I am and you've got to accept me. I think it's about respecting each other and respecting where other people are as well as myself on
mm.
that, I think. And that's just the way I found it to be easiest is having that open mind and knowing that, you know what, Saskia, it's nothing personal. And I think this is another thing I tell myself is
Yeah,
sometimes
that's true.
issue, it's just the fact of what it is. It's very politicized at the moment. And being a trans person now, it's a lot harder than it was, what, 4 or 5 years ago. It's got harder,
Mm.
not easier, funnily enough. I've
Yeah.
um, there's more stuff going on, hate crimes and stuff in society that's just not okay. And trans people are being persecuted all the time, and we're not having those protections. Yes, but at the same time, we're not monsters and we're not bad people. And I think, especially with the misrepresentation in the media, a lot of the time, not all of the time, it's
But
generally,
yeah, but a lot.
it's generally negative. So a lot of people already think negatively of the community, which is a real shame. So for me, I'm trying to do the positive things and change people's minds in that way and say, look, I'm here, I'm trying to do positive things. I'm helping other people to learn and to get it. And I've got to be patient too. Yeah.
Yeah. I think with some of these other groups, like with say with queer people, there's definitely a moment where they suddenly, the world sees us as being emboldened to actually ask for equality, where we, you know, where, oh, it's fine when you're in the shadows, but when you actually just want equity like everybody else, there's this weird kind of threat. And that, like right now, all the kind of populism is like, who can we blame? Who's left to blame? Who's
Yes.
got the smallest voices?
Yeah.
Trans people, and then you've got your refugees and people like that, and before that it was queer people and black people. The thing that I find most heinous is probably cis queer people that just kind of went, "We got our rights, bye bye."
Yeah.
I have so much more of a problem with them than I do with straight people who were like that, and of course not that all trans people are queer, like they're straight trans people, but it's like, really, like, they can't just do basic empathy of like, well, what happens if it was the other way around? What happens if it was the trans people got all the recognition, they were fine, but we were still fighting for our rights?
Yeah.
You just think it was fine, yeah? And people can't do that really simple if you were me. Like,
Self in someone else's shoes. Yeah.
yeah, like I just find it the most obvious thing. Just like leave people alone, because it's not like messing you about. Like all this thing that you say the 4 or 5 years ago, it's like nothing's changed. Nothing's legislatively changed.
Oh,
People could always go and like when Romania became, I say this because I've got like a familial like
yeah.
lineage on that side. It's like when Romania was joining the EU, everyone was like, "Oh my God, it's gonna be flooded with migrants." Da, 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 da. And it was something stupid like 17 people on the first plane, like, and they were like, "Oh yeah," and it's just this perceived level of threat versus actual threat is like, and and that thing of like, like men, they're all gonna go and self-identify as women and go to the toilets and whatever. It's like, well, that hasn't happened given that the legislation that's been in there for ages. Also, those people are just as dangerous to trans women as they are to cis women. So you're actually, it's the same level of the same level of victims. Do you think that sending trans women into the men's toilets is going to be a safer outcome in terms of incidences of like sexual assault and things like that than there is a trans woman using the same bathroom as a cis woman, where everyone is in a fucking cubicle? And like the amount of unisex toilets where it's the same shared communal space where you go wash your hands and stuff than it is where you've got cubicles. It's just none of it makes sense. And like, obviously, you don't want anything to happen to anyone, but like, where did it come from that like all sexual assaults happening in a toilet?
I never had
Like,
toilets. This is a point I was saying, Stephen. It's like, where did
it
that?
happens. It's horrible. Like on the walk home or different things, or on a dance floor, or like
Yeah.
it's why did this become the preserve of like the toilet is the most difficult, dangerous place? It's like
No, this is really it's a good point you make actually. And the other thing was like having trans women on women's wards. Like that thing was brought up on the news not long
that
ago.
was just, and it was, yeah. Steve Barclay asked for it, and it's like because that trans member of the Tory party who's in government went and did a survey of the NHS trust, and there
Yeah.
was literally zero complaints, and it's like you're just literally fabricating stuff for a culture war, like to try and get Labour to bite, to try and get these red wall people to like not bite. But actually, I think it's got to a point now where, when Suella went and said that homeless people in tents was a choice, where it's actually like, oh no, this is just nasty. Like
Vindictive.
I almost did feel like with a lot of like trans people, with like friends that I've got in like council estates and stuff, that they're like, Oh no, now actually it just seems like this party's just nasty. And it when you start inventing problems.
Yes.
I mean, like that the one in Scotland, there was just like a trans person who I think when they were a cis man had
Yes, I saw
like a
that.
thing, and everyone like most of my trans female friends were like, yeah, they seem kind of dodgy,
Yeah,
but like,
I said that. I was like, that does not look right to me. And it was just the whole presentation of it. And I was thinking, is that really like? And for me to even say, I was even thinking, is this person just using the trans thing as a divergence for what
hmm,
they've done? Because again, sometimes it makes the community look bad when maybe that person does identify in that way, but they might not have gone down the full route. And this was also before they transitioned as well. So
with all of these things, and it was like this. I think the Scottish Parliament made a really logical, pragmatic thing, which was there can be inclusion, and everyone's treated fairly, and if there is an incident,
yeah,
then people will be removed. Because
yeah,
also it's like the thing of like again, not to vilify queer people, but like, so what? So like, if you're a trans woman who fancies men, you're more dangerous in a trans in a female wing than a lesbian who's had sexual assault issues.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
what? Like, do you know what I mean? It's just like it's not logical conclusions with stuff. If if I thought like I like I'm quite weirdly like autistically practical with stuff, and I can be very dispassionate about stuff, but I'm like none of it actually makes sense. And like I had trans lecturers at uni, all these things, and like it's just this weird thing of like, everyone thinks it's a new thing. We posted this thing on the HE.SHE.THEY recently, which I think is the best thing I'd ever heard on the subject, which was the trans she's a senator in the States. And she's saying the closest thing I can explain to why there is this rise in transness for trans kids and stuff in school was in the 50s when people were left-handed and they weren't allowed to write with their left hand. And then at some point, we just lifted it and you could write with either hand.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
amount of left-handed people in school
So
rose exponentially but then leveled out
yeah.
because actually, like, like I'm queer. I got brought up entirely with everything being heterosexual,
Yeah.
but all it did was suppress the point that I came out.
Yes.
There ain't nobody who's like trans is like no one would opt to be trans right now. It's like that. This is the weird thing. It's like it's not. Oh, everyone promotes. It's like it's actually really, really difficult. So this idea that like you would go through all these things just to be like in a gang or be in this thing or whatever. It's just like all the every kid that is suddenly like have it like, oh, I'm trans, right, next week you have a massive surgery. Like there's no actual real discussion of how things really are and how much like due diligence of years of going through things before people go through an experience. So it's just like that's why I like doing the HE.SHE.THEY thing, because I've been able to use music, which I had a privilege to do, where I've made lots of people money, and therefore that's my way that I can break through to just go and talk about these issues and why I want straight and cis people to come to our club nights is that I want to be able to disseminate some of this information to people in really manageable, easy ways that people realize like, ah, so that thing just isn't true, or just make them think about
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah. Yeah.
and stop this kind of you versus us. So we're getting there bit by bit. We've got the documentary coming out in January, which is going to be on YouTube and Amazon Prime, and
Fantastic.
it's getting translated into multiple languages and stuff. So that's really cool.
I
So
did.
that's going to be, yeah.
I came down to Reading in Camden for that. I remember it was
Oh,
really.
of course, yeah. Oh, so have you saw it then? Yeah.
Yes, I did. It was amazing. So thanks for the invite down to that. It was great. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's, it's balance, and it's about joy as well as trauma. It's like, and I think that it shows that thing that we've been talking about, that intersectionality approach, that like lots of people come into that community from a different place, but the unifying thing is that everyone just wants respect and love and acceptance.
Yeah.
And it's really obvious. So doing things like that where we can reach more people, and I want to be able to make films and TV shows and all sorts of things to just to show people the humanity of different people, and actually how we can all just get along.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I
It
think
is.
it's
And like
like
the Geordie Martin Luther King.
you are. It's like you're literally like breaking these stereotypes by not just having these events, but you're including everybody. And then people are actually able to process things in their own time, in their own space,
Yeah, yeah.
which I think is fantastic. It's really,
And
really,
having trans people who don't pass.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
having different types of queer people up there, if, like having different body shapes, all these different things. It's like also just
We're all different.
that's yeah, yeah. Anyway, sorry.
No, absolutely
This
fine.
is what I said about being ADHD and getting carried away and just going on one, because it's such a big subject.
That's really interesting. And do you think kind of cultural and age differences have an impact on equality, diversity, and inclusion in the music and entertainment industry?
Yeah, I do, because I think that I think that there in general is a high propensity of younger people to be more accepting,
Yeah.
because like just they grew up with different types of people. We grew up like it's way more diverse. Like even where I come from, where there was like there was one black person in my year out of 60 people when I grew up,
Wow.
like in Sunderland. There was no trans people. And then when I went to school to do a talk, there was two trans students. There was like an actual queer couple in the school. This is in the secondary school. That first one example was my primary school. In the secondary school, it was like that. So I was like, it's definitely changing, and also like Netflix, Disney, all these things. It's just showing different people that it's okay to have different groups of friends helps. But then you still get surprised. Sometimes you still find it with people, but again, I think that this comes down a little bit to social media in the way that you're served information, so that like I'm I'm a big lefty, but like I said to you, I've had a look at like GB News or Talk TV, or I got really obsessed with the idea that I'd be on a panel against Jordan Peterson one day, and I made all these like crib notes of what I would say to Jordan and to Andrew Tate. So because I'd gone in this mad like YouTube rabbit hole, and now get served loads of right wing propaganda.
Right. Okay.
So so you do get that thing of like, because I'm on the left before, it's totally changed what I get served. The same thing is that you're almost so kept from the other person's view that you get really down I find that on HE.SHE.THEY we get a lot of people that are influencers from queer community, black community, trans community, non-binary community, because that's a lot of people that we platform. But like a lot of influencers that'll be like, everyone hates you, but don't worry, I love you. And you're like, that's not good either. Like, that weaponization of like, don't worry, I'm your only like become this almost kind of messiah like figure. And I'm like,
That's not healthy.
no, it breeds a whole bunch of people feeling really unsafe. And it's just like, if it's one thing I would love social media to do more, is to show different types of people, not show trans people loads of transphobia, just for balance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But just like a little bit of like, and here's some cis people who think you're fine, and not just fine, are beautiful and worthy of everything else that they are in your corner.
Yeah.
Like, because I feel like that's life of him. That was always the thing for me as a queer person. Like I first started going queer clubs because of my straight friends, because I didn't know anyone who was queer at first.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Especially because there weren't like online communities and stuff. I mean,
Like that was it either
I don't
then.
think I don't even think there was Grinder when I was like
Yeah.
just coming out. So it was just like, cool. Who's gonna take me this week?
Oh, this has
But
been
yeah, we're getting there. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Steve. Well, that's all the questions I was going to ask you. Is there any kind of, one more thing, is there any kind of major successes or wins you would like to share with the viewers and listeners that you have coming up?
We're doing a 12-day tour of America, and we're going to like cities like Oklahoma and Buffalo, as well as Miami's and New York's and San Fran's, because I think it's really important that like to do it in Oklahoma feels more radical than to do it in New York.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we're doing another big UK tour. Then we're doing a European one, and then we're finally going to go to Asia again, and then we're going to go to Australia and South America for the first time.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, it's a lot. We just got nominated for DJ Mag label of the year, which is good.
Sure.
And yeah, there's a couple of bigger companies actually looking to buddy up with us. And it's a funny one because part of me is like fiercely independent, but then the other part of me is like there's only three of us who run the management company, the label, the records, all the events, everything is just three of us. So it's like, God, if we've done this by ourselves,
What could you?
how could we actually change culture if we had a machine behind us?
Yeah.
So you know, if we do, I know we're gonna have some level of like, oh, you sold out or whatever. But then I think my biggest thing is that like, you know, I want to have a stage a Glastonbury, the massive one where you've got 30,000 people all playing to a trans artist who's just coming up for the first time, or like, and they can see all these things, because that's really when you start changing stuff. Like, you know, when you have, as much as you have a backlash against things like The Little Mermaid or whatever from some fucking incels, there will be a whole generation of young black girls that saw themselves for the first time.
Totally empowered and inspired.
Yeah. And do you know what? In 20, 30 years' time, when whichever fictional character, like honestly, if your biggest difficulty for suspension of disbelief was not the fact that this girl has a fucking tail as a fish, then has legs, and then can go and like live in the sea with a talking crab, but you can get that, but you can't get the fact that she's like brown skinned. Like Jesus, the problem is not the Little Mermaid; it's definitely you. Like, but young kids are just gonna be like, yeah, what was that about? Like, this is the good thing, and so that's why I kind of want to go into more mainstream culture, because telling loads of trans people that trans people aren't evil is a given, and but going to that real big mass broader thing is, I feel like that's when I get invited onto bloody, like, you know, Good Morning USA or whatever, I don't know what the program is, or Kelly Clarkson or something like that, or challenge Piers Morgan and be able to be like, no, I'm not somebody, like, because they sometimes put on like pundits that are so in one direction. And I'm like, no, actually, I come from those red wall places that you talk about. I'm just a normal person here. Actually, my experience is that we can be all happy and united. There's no problems in 45 cities around the world. We haven't had one, like, across cultures, like we haven't like had a problem with the gender neutral bathrooms, from America to India, from to Ibiza. Like like the more power that I can get, the more change I can do.
Yes. Okay.
So that's why we kind of want to do these things, and because people are sometimes like, oh, you know, like you do, like almost like, are you getting too big? And I'm like,
You
I
can,
don't think I can get big enough.
yeah, you've never,
Like, yeah, do you know, like look at Dolly Parton. Like, what, like, how amazing to use your platform and your power to go and give 150 million school books to people, to
oh,
go and advocate for trans people, for gay people, for people of color, all these things. And like her fan base is a country fan base.
Yeah.
It's not like she was preaching to the choir on it, but she stood her ground. And like I saw people coming for like a 77-year-old woman or wherever she is shouldn't go and wear what she wore in the Super Bowl. I was like, she looked fucking brilliant.
I wish I looked like that when I'm 77.
100%. But also, like, why are we telling ourselves like that when we're 77 that that we can't be beautiful anymore, that we can't be a use to society anymore? Because when we're going to do that as well, it's not even self-serving, because at one point you'll be 77 and you've completely caged yourself because of like what you should or shouldn't do. Of course, it was like men again. And you're just like, just stop it. Just why are you so interested in somebody else wearing something when
Is
you're
that
wearing a t-shirt that's probably got bean sauce down it? Like,
You're so funny. I love it. This has been fantastic. I've loved this
thank you.
so much. Thank you for your time today. It's been amazing. This has been fabulous. Thank you again.
My absolute pleasure. And we should hang out soon.
We certainly will. I'll speak to you later.
Right, big love. Bye.
Wait this one up and pause.